Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's so good to see you here this evening. My name is Valina Dixon, and I'm going to serve as your Mistress of Ceremonies this evening. The program is not too formal, but we do have an agenda for you. Hopefully everyone has an agenda. Before we get started, just want to invite everyone to please come up a little closer to the front if you'd like. No reason to sit towards the back. Please come on up. We also have water in the back if you'd like a bottle of water, and we have some writing tablets this evening too. Part of our opportunity this evening is to come together on behalf of the mayor and the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority as we take another important step in discussing the future of our East End communities. Since 2010, and some of you have been involved in those meetings, I know because I've seen you there, we have been discussing various issues about really looking forward to the future of our East End communities, our Eastview neighborhood, as well as our Creighton and Whitcomb communities. Just a few months ago, our RHA issued a request for qualifications for a master developer for the Eastview and the Whitcomb and the Creighton and 9 Mile Road areas to assist us, to really work with us in a very detailed way with the planning for East End revitalization. And you'll hear more about that later on in tonight's meeting. So with that in mind, we held our first East End community meeting on August the 14th at Armstrong High School. Were any of you able to attend that meeting? Great, great. And in that meeting, we committed to continue the dialogue and to come into each of our communities. So just a few weeks ago, we met in our Creighton community, and tonight we're here for you in the Whitcomb community. So before we get started, tonight is an opportunity for us to have dialogue with you. We do want to hear from you. Did we bring cards this evening? We have cards that you can write down any comments or questions, because later on in the meeting we will take those cards and we will share those comments and questions with you. And our CEO and our Deputy CAO for the City of Richmond will answer those questions. So let's get on with our agenda. I have the pleasure of formally introducing you to our two guests tonight, the two leaders of our organizations who will share information with you and be a part of your dialogue. I first want to introduce to you our new CEO, Adrienne Goolsby. She joined the Richmond Redevelopment and Housing Authority in April of this year, and since her arrival, she has been extremely engaged in our communities. She has done walkthroughs with us, she's hosted many meetings, and has really made this a priority for her to get out and meet and speak with our community members. She comes to us from the Chicago Housing Authority, where she worked for 11 years in several positions, including Executive Vice President and Liaison to the Mayor's Office at the City of Chicago. In her leadership role there, she helped oversee a $1.5 billion transformation plan for the Chicago Housing Authority, which brought the revitalization of public housing communities and transforming them into mixed-use, mixed-income, quality neighborhoods for public housing families. As our new CEO, she has consistently stated that her goal is to work collaboratively with RHA community members, staff, City of Richmond, schools, public and private partners to build positive, collective energy around revitalizing and transforming our public housing communities into communities of health, success, and opportunity for you, the families that we serve. So we're going to bring her up in just a few moments. And we're also joined this evening by Peter Chapman, who is the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Economic Development and Planning. And he's representing our mayor this evening, Mayor Dwight Jones, who couldn't be with us. Mr. Chapman has been working in Mayor Dwight Jones' administration for the past 3 years. He has joined the mayor in helping to set the City of Richmond on a path of growth and prosperity. Mr. Chapman is responsible for the City of Richmond's economic development, neighborhood revitalization, and planning functions, and manages the city's vital partnership with RRHA and many other citywide efforts. He has extensive experience in fostering neighborhood transformation in several major cities to include Boston and Denver. And his urban development and neighborhood revitalization experience and his shared vision for the transformation of public housing will help our city prosper and contribute to Richmond becoming a Tier 1 city. So please welcome Peter Chapman.
Thank you, Valina, for that all too gracious introduction. After Valina introduces you, you don't even recognize yourself, which is the sign of a very good MC. Again, good evening. My name is Peter Chapman. I am Deputy CAO for Economic and Community Development, and what that means is that I work closely with a number of stakeholders across city government and with the Housing Authority and, of course, His Honor, the Mayor, to help move the ball forward on a number of initiatives that are designed to redevelop and revitalize neighborhoods and also invest in human capital, which are two very important themes of this discussion. And so on behalf of the Mayor, I want to just share some perspectives. Again, as Valina said, this is a very informal discussion, but it's nonetheless a very, very important discussion because it's about how we are going to work together. We, meaning the City of Richmond, RRHA, which is our principal redevelopment arm, and also you, the residents, to transform the greater Whitcomb Court community. And let me say that I know that a lot of this is about housing development, creating safe, decent, and affordable housing opportunities for folks. But at the end of the day, what it's really about, I think, and I know this sounds corny to some folks, but it's really about unlocking human potential. It's really about unlocking human potential. And so one of the things that we see as a core part of this new model that we want to advance is human capital investment. So human capital investment can mean a lot of different things, but when we talk about it, it means workforce development, it means family self-sufficiency, but we'll get into that later. Just to reinforce the vision that the Mayor has spoken of on countless occasions, it's really about multi-level transformation of neighborhoods, bottom line. It's about creating in the Whitcomb Court area and in other parts of the East End. It's about creating decent, safe, and affordable housing, bottom line. And also the supportive elements that will help to transform neighborhoods. So that could mean more grocery stores, addressing the food desert issue that we have in this part of the city. It could mean, where feasible, it could mean filling holes in services across a number of areas, and we'll talk about that this evening. One of the things I wanted to point out is, it's very, very important. This is a critical and what we call foundational priority for the Mayor's administration, for the Jones administration. We've talked a lot over the last year, and you've probably heard the Mayor talk about our priorities in terms of Broad Street downtown. We've talked a lot about North Boulevard redevelopment. We had a conversation last night about the riverfront, but this is fundamentally transformational, Investing in people in the East End, people in Eastview, by revitalizing and strengthening these communities, this is absolutely critical. So, one of the best ways to help folks understand the vision is through pictures. And so I'm going to pause for a second, and we're going to just run through some slides. But before I do that, I want to just make sure that I'm acknowledging some key folks who are here. We have Ms. Robertson, Ellen Robertson, who's the 6th District Council member who's here. And there are some critical members of my team who are the folks who have been doing a lot of work on the Eastview Initiative, and I want to make sure you know them. Doug Dunlap, who is from the Department of Planning and Development Review. Denise Laws, who is the Deputy Director of the Department of Economic and Community Development, and some core members of her team. Don't be shy, Denise, raise your hand. There's Juanita Buster, who you probably know. Juanita knows these neighborhoods better than any community development professional I've met here, and Ken McLemore, who's seated behind Denise. So, wanted to acknowledge them. And Elizabeth Coker, the very quiet and brilliant Elizabeth Coker. Jameson Mannion, when we talk about workforce development, he's the workforce development king, and I'm serious about that. And I see Dr. Merrifield from the Parks Department. Great. So we're just going to highlight a few before and after slides so that folks can have some perspective on what we talk about when we talk about the potential to transform our communities. That's just a map showing concentration of public and subsidized housing. And as you can see, it's all in this area. And so years from now, what you'll see is a deconcentration of that situation. We can talk more about that. We can just go on. I want to go to some of the other communities. You know, we have looked very closely as a team, as individuals. We've looked very closely at what other communities have accomplished in terms of strengthening their public housing. This is East Lake Meadows in Atlanta, pre-revitalization. They used to call this Little Vietnam because it had one of the highest murder rates in the city of Atlanta. So that's before. This is after. And this is mixed income housing. This is incredible. Next. Broad Creek, you know, just a little ways down the road in Norfolk. They've had a lot of the same issues and opportunities that we do. And so they started a revitalization about 10 years ago. That's what it used to look like. This is what it looks like now. And we took a delegation of folks, city council members, folks from the housing authority, business community, city agencies, down to see this one, as well as the project in Atlanta. We were just all blown away. That's another view of it. Robert Taylor Homes. Ms. Goolsby knows this all too well. The Chicago Housing Authority has been a phenomenal example of what can be done through strategic partnerships. And so this is Robert Taylor Homes before. This is what it looks like today. Next. Cabrini Green. You know, when I see this, I think about good times. I don't know if you all remember good times. I'm showing my age now. This is what it used to look like. This is what it looks like today. Dove Court, a little bit closer to home. You all remember Dove Court? And I should have pointed out, Dove Court is our first local example, okay? Or at least it will be our first local example of the vision that I articulated at the beginning. That's what Dove used to look like. These are some photographs of what the interior, of what the inside of those units will look like. Construction has already started on the first 80 units. So I think you get the picture. I just wanted to set the stage for the next phase of this discussion. And let me also say that a big part of what makes these partnerships among housing authorities, local governments, and residents successful is mutual trust. And that trust begins with an open and candid dialogue. And so we want to invite all of your questions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we want to address those issues in a very candid, honest, and straightforward way. Two of the biggest questions that folks pose in these situations, and I've seen this all over the country. A, how will I be treated during the relocation process? Will I be treated with respect and compassion? And B, will I be able to come back? Will I be allowed to come back after revitalization? And so this process is just beginning. No decisions have been made, but this represents a significant opportunity for you all working collaboratively with all of us to shape what this effort looks like. So I'll pause there and cede the floor to my trusty colleague, Ms. Goolsby. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. And thank you for coming out to the Whitcomb community meeting. First of all, I want to thank all of the tenant council representatives here. I would also like to say welcome to our city councilwoman who is here, as well as the RRHA staff and City of Richmond staff. We want to thank you for coming out this evening. Thank you, Peter, for giving an overview of what's to come. One of the things that we're doing here is this is a continuation of a meeting that took place on August 14th at Armstrong High School. And what we stated in that meeting was that we were going to have continuous dialogue with the community. One of the things that we want to do is to make sure that we hear all of your questions. We also know that we don't know all of the answers right now, but we're going to make sure that we have an open and continued dialogue with the community, with our community members, as well as with the East End Revitalization Initiative moving forward. So one of the things that we're doing here, Peter's kind of like outlined what's the drive for redevelopment and revitalization in this area. And I know that there have been a number of years of planning that's gone into looking at various grant opportunities to revitalize this area. The city is definitely on board with ensuring that this area becomes revitalized, and RRHA is right there alongside with the city. So we wanted to let you all know that we've heard the community's concerns. We want to make sure that everyone is integrated and is involved. And I know I'm only 6 months old here, but we've done it in Chicago. And I want to let you all know that it's possible that we can do it here in Richmond. So we appreciate you being here and taking time out from your evening activities. I know it's a school night, but please share it with your neighbors. Please share it with your friends and with the community members. Meetings like today are really important because we get to hear directly from you. We get your input, we understand what your concerns are, and we're gonna sit here and answer the questions that we can answer, and those questions that we cannot, we're gonna put them in three-pronged approach when we're looking at revitalization for RRHA. One of the things that everyone's always talking about is that it's the housing. It's looking at the bricks and mortar of the buildings, changing how the buildings look, changing how the communities look, looking at the physical attributes of the building. And so there is the housing piece. But what I kind of envision is that we're not just changing the housing and where people live and what communities are, but we're changing the very fabric of the individuals that we serve, that we're changing the lives of families. And so when you look at it, you've got to integrate revitalization where it's not just the bricks and mortar, but it's also trying to create economic development, create job opportunities, training opportunities, opportunities for families to integrate, and opportunities for families to share with one another in a different way than how you see it today. Another piece when we look at the role of revitalization is creating neighborhoods. Neighborhoods aren't just built because we put new buildings somewhere. Neighborhoods are built because you have community. And community isn't just because we all live together. It's about the very fabric of what we share, what are the buildings that are in the area, what type of community center, where do we play, where's the green space, where's the commercial development, where are the grocery stores, how are we gonna interact with one another? So really creating neighborhoods and understanding what that's gonna look like in the future. And we, RRHA, the city of Richmond, we don't determine that. You all, the people who live in this neighborhood, help to determine that. And so that's why we want to make sure that we have open dialogue. So what my role is to let you know today, what have we done thus far? So right now, we had a competitive RFQ, which is a request for qualification process, where those developers have actually submitted requests for qualifications and proposals to RRHA. We are getting ready to start the review process. And the review process is going to be comprised of several people who are coming from the community here, residents, as well as comprised of individuals from the community broadly, from RRHA, as well as the city of Richmond. So we want to make sure that we have a cross-section of individuals on the review team. Once the review is done, and throughout that process, we will still continue to engage the community and have community meetings over the next 3 to 5 months while that review process is taking place. And when they get it narrowed down to the best and final and the top, we will bring those procurement or those best and final developers to the community. And we will announce it, and we will have them present what they have so that everyone is all on the same page as far as what the review team has selected and who they're looking at from a master developer perspective. So that's where we are right now. We are at the very, very beginning of this process. I know that some people are wondering, when does this take place? When do I have to move? One of the things that I want to let you all know is that this is a long process. No one has to move today. No one is moving in the next year. This is a multi-year process that takes place. So I don't want anyone to feel as if we've got to pack up today, we've got to relocate, we don't have any options. None of that has been laid out. That is not happening at this point in time. We're just in the process of just selecting the developer who's going to let us know, one developer or 2 developers, who's gonna let us know here's some options as far as how we want the community to look. So that's where we are at this point. Again, I would say that the purpose of today's meeting is to understand your questions, to understand what your thoughts are, and to get your input. We're going to have several of these over the next 5 months or so. We will continue to have them thereafter, but I just want to make sure that we preface it saying that over the next 5 months, it's important to have community engagement and input as we move towards completing the review process for the master developer selection. So at this stage, I would kind of open it up for questions. Oh, I'm sure there's some questions out there. Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Any questions or cards?
Our first question this evening, what is one-for-one replacement? And will this transformation help disadvantaged people?
Okay, so yes, first of all, the transformation will help disadvantaged people. One-for-one replacement is a concept where for every public housing unit, there would be a replacement of that public housing unit. Sometimes that is seen on site when you have revitalization efforts, and sometimes it's seen off site. I will sit here, I will stand here, I'm not sitting here. I will stand here and tell you that we will not have one-for-one replacement right here on site. But for every public housing unit that is represented here, we will make sure that there's an affordable housing opportunity for every occupied unit within the city of Richmond. One of the things that the city of Richmond, RRHA, is very, very, very passionate about doing is that we want to deconcentrate poverty. I mean, when we look at poverty over the last 50 years, there was a social fabric that was created where the idea was like, let's put everyone of the same socioeconomic status in some form or fashion in the same area. And that wasn't necessarily the best plan. One of the things that we've learned, and it's not necessarily just in Richmond, but I can say in Chicago, is to have a mixture of incomes as well as decentralizing poverty across the city. That does not mean that you're gonna lose your ability to be housed and that you're not gonna have public housing dollars. Those public housing dollars from a HUD regulatory standpoint will still go with a unit, and it would be from an affordable housing perspective. So that's what's one-for-one replacement. Oh,
All right, our next question. When they get ready to tear down these apartments, will they give us enough time and find a place, or will they help us to find somewhere to live?
You will have enough time to find a place, and we will structure a relocation process where there is enough time built in the process for you to have choice. One of the things that we found in Chicago that worked well when you talked about relocation and having a massive rehabilitation and transformation process is that people need to know at least 18 months before time to move, because you have kids that are impacted from school. We're working with the public school system. You have kids and their activities. You have families that are impacted as far as transportation. So being able to plan what that looks like from a relocation perspective. The second thing that happened was that there was choice. So there wasn't this direction where we're saying, you're going here, you're going there. There were choices. We were able to get waivers from HUD in Chicago, and we hope that we'll be able to do so here, where people had the option, I can't promise this at this time, but people had the option of basically looking at Section 8 vouchers. There were housing choice vouchers, or selecting if they wanted to move to another rehabilitated unit that's in public housing, or move to another affordable housing opportunity. So there will be choice, and we'll have a system that will track those choices as we go through the relocation process.
Any other questions we're ready to turn in? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, our next question, how can we afford these apartments?
Well, if you are a public housing resident, the amount that you are paying today based on your makeup and based on your financial status will remain the same. So if you're paying 30% of your adjusted income, then you'll be paying 30% of your adjusted income. When you're looking at the revitalization process, the way that we look at mixed income communities, I mean, you look at it in different ways from a financing perspective, but there'll be a certain amount that's allocated to public housing residents. And from that perspective, there will be no difference in price differentiation based on what you are paying today, but it'll be based on 30% of your adjusted income, or if it's a minimum rent standard. If you move up the continuum, which we hope you do, and you move to an affordable housing type of apartment or home or what have you, then there might be additional dollars that you would pay, but that would be based on your income as well. And we will hope that you're making more money, because we would have done our job from a workforce development perspective to ensure that you have the adequate training and that there are job opportunities for you as economic development takes place in the community. I'd like to take a look. Okay, what? Yes, I would like. Okay, well, actually, I'm going to hand it over to our workforce development pipeline guru, who has been working with us. And let me say this, that, you know, RRHA can't do it alone, and this is kind of like my mantra across the city as we're working with various partners and trying to revitalize communities. We are working closely with the city of Richmond. We're working closely with other partners to ensure that there are services that are available for our residents. And so this is one of the things that I want to say. And then before the election, I said we didn't know what was going to happen, and we're not quite sure if the dollars are going to be there. After the election, I'm still going to say we're not quite sure if the dollars are going to be there. So you all need to take advantage of these resources that are for the low, low price of free today. Okay, I say the low price of free, because we don't know how long they're going to be free, right? So we have case management services in the Calhoun Center, and we'll talk about what that phone number is, and we want people to get registered there. We have this wonderful partnership with the Workforce Development Pipeline, who's helping us tremendously, actually filling a number of the Section 3 jobs and filling jobs across the city. But we need you to register. We need you to get trained. We need your resumes. We need your names in order to fit you with the appropriate jobs that are, and job opportunities that are coming up. So I'm going to let Mr. Mannion take the mic.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me down. Good evening. Good evening. That's good. All right. My name is James Mannion, and I'm here to partner with you to help you kind of plan a career. And part of the thing we bring in this discussion, and why we're having these meetings so early, is that it takes time to prepare for what is to come. So you're going to have, when they decide the final plan, like 18 months to be notified, as Ms. Goolsby said, that you're going to have 18 months to move, but you need to start working on it today. You got to start thinking about what you're doing. Start thinking about what you want to do. And it's part of that because we know that the economy's been rough, there's been fewer opportunities, and there's been a lot of changes. And so what we've been working at doing is saying, where are the opportunities? How can we help folks prepare for those opportunities and move into better opportunities? And so RRHA and working with Grace and Dion and Leah and everyone has been working, trying to say, where are the opportunities? Where can we help folks move forward? And then there's been money set aside to help people get training and move towards opportunities that are out there. Now, there are three things, and this is my philosophy on life, all right? And you can have your own, but this is mine. You need three things in life to be happy. You need hope that next year is better than this year. And looking at some of these nice houses and everything else like that, that's hopeful. That's nice. You need control, that it's within your control, within your power, to be able to do something to improve your situation, to move forward. That's not up to somebody else. Because we can tell you right now, there's nobody else as interested in your life as you are. And so you've got to get engaged with your life and learn what the opportunities are and take advantage of those opportunities. And then equity, fairness. That when you do something and you put some work into it, that something good happens and you're able to move forward with your life. And so working together as a partnership, first of all, hope. We've got a great team looking at revitalizing the neighborhoods, looking at what the future is. And when you hear all the bad news about the economy, let me tell you a little secret, okay? Living in Richmond, there are more jobs available right now than we have unemployed people. Let me say that again. There are more jobs available than we have unemployed people. Last month, there were 40,000 job postings in the Richmond area, and there were officially 35,000 people looking for them. There's a problem with the gap. People aren't ready, or they don't know about the opportunities, and I will take their skills and put it in a way that relates to the employer. And so what we do is we work with you as an individual. We don't have a one-size-fits-all. We don't have kind of like, you may have seen videos of a farm where they take all the sheep and they dip all the sheep in one big vat and then all the sheep go off the same way. That's not the way we work. We're going to work with you individually. We're going to say, what's your dream? What do you want to be? Where do you want to be a year from now? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? What's your goal for your family and your children? And then help you develop that plan to move forward with your interest and aptitude. There are funds available specifically for this program. There are opportunities, and there are people standing by. So if you have an interest and you want the hope, you want the control, because that's one of the aspects too, is you've got to be involved. Nobody's going to get you a job. That's one thing I always tell everybody. I am not getting you a job. My job is not to get you a job. My job is to give you opportunities because you're the most qualified person and you get the job because you deserve it. And so that's where the control is to take place. We'll lay out a path for you, you have to walk it. And then equity. We want to help folks find the benefits to build up, to make a better life for themselves and their future children, and that's where we're going. So if you want to get involved, talk to Grace or Dion or your team at RHA, or call 646-6464. That is a fabulous number, 646-6464. And folks are standing by to get information and talk to you. So if you have any questions, glad to answer.
Thank you, James.
Yes. Most of my questions have been answered as you all are speaking. I just have a question. When they started revitalize our neighborhood, will the residents have an opportunity to get a chance to work with them to maybe get a certificate, go towards coming back to the the neighborhood? Will they offer opportunity like that? Like they do the housing building and they have people to work, to get a certificate or to come back in or can gain the opportunity to move back in?
Yes, the idea is if we can get you engaged in services now, and we can get you along the continuum of what needs to be done, the work requirement or whatever the requirements are for site selection has not been determined. That'll be determined by a working group, and that'll be comprised of folks who are on a review team along with additional folks from an advisory committee who will come up with, here are some criteria that we're looking at from a site selection perspective. But that site selection criteria would not be something that's done in a vacuum. That's something that will come back to the group and saying these are the things that the working group is looking at. Once that's defined and we know what people should be working towards, we want to make sure that everyone's engaged in services to work towards meeting that site selection criteria. So yes, It is possible, and yes, we'll make sure that we do it in enough time frame, and we have programs that are structured to get people to move them along the continuum. I mean, when you look at our site selection criteria for Dove, that was something that was developed. I mean, it was many years ago, but it was developed where they're requiring that people have jobs as they move back into the new redeveloped units. However, we also want to make sure that we have the right services that are getting people to the level of having a job, and that they're able to retain that job as they move into those new units. And so we will have social services available on site with the property manager to ensure that we have those wraparound services to make sure that people are successful. Because we want to make sure that people are successful and that they are operating in these units and that they are achieving. And so that we're not trying to set it up so people can fail. We want to make sure that people are successful.
And as Mr. Mannion said, and as Goolsby said, you can begin now. You can begin today. I want to just have our staff from our Family Services and Community Relations to stand. And they are available to you this evening. When our meeting is over, if you want to go over and introduce yourself, they can start to work with you today with the different programs and services that we have available. Grace Lewis is here, Dion Woody, Joan Selvin, Terry Caldwell Ward, and Geraldine Evans, Ralph Stuckey. So they're here this evening to talk with you, to get you started. And we have another phone number at the Housing Authority, which is 780-4835. If you call 780-4835, that could be your first step as well to get started.
And what you'll find is that the Housing Authority, over the last few months, and I think back in March, there was a reorganization where they're looking at the total family. So it's not just the leaseholder. They're looking at the entire family, all the way from the children, what services they need or what type of activities they want to be involved in, to the parents, and what type of services and things they need. So looking at the family holistically, which is a better approach to help people move along that continuum. Because sometimes what you'll find is that people can't work because there's something from a daycare perspective, or there's something that is happening medically with their child, and that actually impedes them from being able to have a full-time job. And so those are things that these individuals would know and would be able to figure out what's that fit for you as you move forward.
There was another question.
Good evening. I wanted to know, after this meeting is over with, it's probably going to be another meeting, maybe another one. How far are you guys going to give this information out to the residents that couldn't make it to this meeting for whatever the reason may be? I mean, because this is important, vital information. I think all our residents out here should have this information. Everybody can't always make it out to meetings,
Right.
for whatever their personal reasons are. But I just want to know what would be the next step for them to know what's going on in this meeting tonight.
Good question. One of the things that we do is that we meet internally to figure out what should be the community engagement strategy. So I would definitely take that. I mean, I know we have some handouts here, but one of the things is we should take back some of the questions, actually do a Q&A and send that back out, not only to the Whitcomb community, but also Creighton community. So we will do that and send it out through the property management channel so that all the residents will have that information. The other thing is that, we're gonna say, I'm one of those people who believes you tell the truth, you can tell it any day, all day, every day, okay? And so when we have the next meeting, and it might be some new residents who have the same questions, same answers, okay? And then we might have another meeting, because believe me, we will have continuous meetings, and it will be the same answers as we move through this process. So thank you for that feedback, and we'll make sure that we send something out through the property management office.
And we also will post information for those of you who have access to the City of Richmond's Channel 17. This meeting will actually be on that channel, and it runs multiple times throughout the month. So you can always tune in there. And also, if you have access to the internet, on the RRHA website, we also put a link for this video and post information. So we are very much committed to sharing that. The gentleman here had a question, and then we'll come to that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, how did y'all, renovate Creighton and then talk about transforming? And why do Brooklyn Court do that
When the ARP funds were awarded, now, and what I've heard, and so staff helped me who's here, I got property management, asset management back there. The ARP funds were allocated based on a formula basis. So when, I'm assuming that when they determined the areas that needed to have repairs done immediately from a capital standpoint, as well as some of the, what do you call the, more commercial kind of revitalization that was done with Creighton, it was decided that those dollars would be allocated to one development at that time frame, and then if we were to get other dollars, then they were allocated at that point. I would say though, one of the questions that has come up is that since we've actually invested dollars from our perspective, what will happen? And so what will happen is that some of the cosmetic stuff that was done, we will take that and utilize it in other properties. And then some of the things that were done from a capital perspective, unfortunately, you know, that would be something on a long-term basis as we go through the relocation process. But it's not going to be immediate, so they will get some advantage from the capital investment that was done from the ARP funding. But we had limited funds, so that's what happened. Yes, sure.
Who do I talk to about the advisory committee?
The advisory committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you can actually give us your name. Why don't you, well, when we get done, we can give it to Valina Dixon, and we can talk about it from there, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I know that this question is premature for you. I don't want to, put you on the spot.
That's okay.
I'm just curious, who is going to pay for the relocation of the tenants? Is it going to be, us or?
No, the relocation of the tenants will come from the housing authority. What typically happens is that when a unit is closed or when a unit is being revitalized or when we have a revitalization process, there are dollars that are associated with that come from HUD. And those replacement factor dollars are dollars that we would utilize to move residents and to relocate them. So you wouldn't have to worry about moving companies and vans. We will orchestrate all of that and procure a contractor to do that.
And you are going to try to see that also paying the homeless.
I didn't hear the last part, ma'am.
You said you will try to work to make sure no families are homeless.
Yes, most definitely. And this is the thing. Let me say this, and we said this at Creighton. No one should be homeless as long as you are lease compliant. Everybody know you got a lease? Yeah. All right, everybody know the rules in the lease? Yeah. All right, so that doesn't mean like, oh, revitalization's coming down the pipe. I'm just gonna do whatever I wanna do from the lease. The lease still is upheld, so we need to make sure that we maintain our lease compliant status so that we can move forward to either, if it's to a Section 8 voucher or if it's to a whole nother area. But we need to remain lease compliant. So still continue to pay your rent on time, continue to be lease compliant, do all those things that you're doing right now so that we don't have any issues later.
Yes. Just say something about the relocation piece from the city side. Relocation is critical, and I should say having adequate resources to support the relocation process is critical. And as Adrian pointed out, there will be dollars made available, through HUD to support it. But one of the things that we've looked at very closely is cities that have tapped other sources to support relocation, so that rather than just providing the minimum level of relocation assistance, you can go beyond that to ensure a very, very comfortable transition for folks. And so we're drawing from some of those models and best practices, one of which is Baltimore, which drew resources from the philanthropic community, so from foundations, from corporations. And so we hope to get local foundations and corporations involved in this redevelopment effort, and one opportunity, one investment opportunity for them will be resident relocation. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not a done deal, but I just wanted you to understand that we're thinking about it in a very thoughtful and critical way.
You will not have to pay for your relocation services. Okay, yes. Question?
My question is, I don't know if it's in the plan or not. My question is, when they do sanitary departments now, will they have like, and build new ones, will they have a police proceeding with each one, or that, you know, anything happen, that they be right there, like Essex Village is? And another thing, I know when they do build, it be much better now. Will they have like checkpoints, like have a sec where they check, see who's supposed to be in the apartment, come to, and who's not supposed to be?
You know,
Will they have it like that?
that's definitely an idea. I mean, that's something that can be incorporated. You're talking about, you know, is it going to be a gated community, or are you going to have checkpoints so that you can have, you know, egress and regress within the development? And that's definitely an opportunity. That's something that could go into the plans. One of the things that, one of the beautiful things about this process is that we're just starting, right? And so those are things that if we want to put on the table when we're talking to whoever is selected as the master developer or whomever, then those are things we can put on the table.
So it'll be much better.
Okay, that's definitely well taken. Thank you for that input. And we'll have time throughout this process to continue to get input. So if next time it'll still probably be me and Peter and the mayor, but the next few times after a master developer is selected, it's gonna be the master developers up here trying to get community input as to what you want to see and what you want to look and how the community should evolve, because they're gonna do renderings and sketchings and bring options. So this isn't one of those things that's done in a vacuum. This is a very open type process so that you can say, I remember when we had that meeting and we chose that design, or we said we liked that one better. So you'll have that opportunity. Okay. Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you all for having these open forum, giving the community an opportunity to be engaged in the discussion and understand the development process and strategy that's being used. I think that it would be important if we could share the timeline, the anticipated timeline that we expect throughout this process. I believe you've spoken about the RFP, the review and selection of master developer. But I think perhaps if the information which is in past years to the timeline, that will kind of help people to appreciate that process of what they would expect in a certain time period.
Okay, so I wish I had the magic ball to say what that is. What I can say right now is that the review process for the master developer is going to get jump started in the next week or so. And then probably somewhere around 4 months from there, so we're thinking more on a February timeframe, we would go through the process of identifying who would be the master developer that's selected. It could be more than one. So because it's such a large area, there could very well be more than one selected. We don't think more than two, but it could definitely be more than one. And then from there, the master developer should actually outline a full community engagement process that they would go through to ensure that the community is kept abreast as far as what the designs would be. And then from there, we're also negotiating, once we're talking to the community, what that looks like. And that could take literally anywhere from 6 to 9 months when you're talking about designs and renderings and going back and forth with the community, engaging what you want physically, and then to figure out how to finance that. Would take even, some substantial time as far as, what portion could be for tax credits, what type of private equity investment will we have, what type of things from a capital funding perspective would HUD have, and so all those different types of things, or if there are additional grants that we could apply for that would allow us to cover the cost. I couldn't tell you today what the cost is going to be for this effort. Because it hasn't been enumerated from beginning to end, because we haven't selected a master developer. But this is I would say from a development perspective, at least, when you're talking about revitalizing this entire community, it would be over multiple phases, and I'm envisioning it's gonna be a 5-year process. For something where you're talking about it's 1,000 units and you're doing multiple phases. How many units that will be brought back, I don't know. That's going back and forth, and that'll be something that'll be decided over time. But when you're talking about the area in itself, and it's not just Whitcomb, it's Whitcomb creating the whole East End initiative, that could be anywhere from a 3 to 5 year process. Because the whole procurement piece in itself is, close to 6 to 9 months.
And we did provide a handout for you this evening. Each of you have a handout. And on the front, we talk about the major areas that we will be discussing. Then on the back, we have mapped out for you a
The initial,
high-level
yeah.
schedule. Okay, so please keep this. Please keep this. And there are extra copies tonight. If there's someone who wants to take this information home to your neighbor, please feel free to do that. This is not the only time that we'll be meeting with you, as Ms. Gould said. We will be back many, many more times. But this is good, basic information for you to have. Okay?
I knew that, can I do one more question?
Sure.
How long will we have to wait before we can, do some work for the school? That the city has so long.
I'm gonna let Peter speak to that one.
That's a very good question, and let me take a step back and say that the redevelopment effort will have several legs of the stool, if you will. The housing is critical, as we've talked about tonight, but we also want to look at some distressed, vacant, and blighted properties in the area and determine how we can redevelop those to serve as, just examples. Community centers, recreational facilities. Perhaps there is some opportunity in the surrounding area for some small-scale retail development, so forth and so on. So one of the things we are going to be looking at very, very soon is what sort of resources can be brought to bear, and I'm defining resources broadly. It's not just financial resources, but it's also developer capacity, So the developer partners that Adrian referred to, who we will eventually have, 1 or 2 or whatever, we will work with them to flesh out redevelopment strategies, not just for the housing, but for some of those vacant and blighted properties in the area, including but not limited to the school site. So that's an excellent question, because that is going to factor very significantly in what happens in this area. Again, we don't have all the answers at this point, but we know that it represents an opportunity.
Could we get help from,
The workforce development guru?
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, you have a question for Ms. Ms. Robertson? You can, oh, but she's right there, you can pose a question to her. Other questions on that point?
Yes, I'm not talking about that. I think the point which you mentioned as relates to other properties and vacant and blighted properties in the community. There are boundaries for the redevelopment area for the Whitcomb, RFP,
Mm-hmm.
and they include boundaries greater than the Whitcomb
The public house,
public housing
Right.
community proper,
very much so.
okay? Is the community aware what those boundaries are? And I'm asking asking that for the perspective of whether or not, what outreach efforts are we doing to try to encourage the greater community to be involved in this discussion?
It's a good question. The questions were, just to repeat them, they're closely related questions. What are the boundaries for the larger redevelopment area, and what efforts have been undertaken thus far and moving forward? What is planned in terms of engaging the broader community in that discussion? And let me say that on that point, we really started the process, what would you say, Doug, a couple of years ago? We really started the process of engaging the broader community, so the broader Eastview community, which surrounds this neighborhood, in a series of visioning discussions about what opportunities did people see for taking some of these blighted and underutilized properties and putting them back to productive use. And that's been a very important issue to address, because what we have in the surrounding area, beyond the public housing, is what we consider to be critical mass of vacant and blighted properties. And so I'm forgetting the precise number of units that we've helped to move along. Doug may want to comment on that. Demolition, acquisition. Here.
We've probably done a demo of maybe 5 to 10 properties in the general Eastview neighborhood. And again, as Peter indicated, we're looking at that as those vacant lots, those opportunities for infill as an opportunity to develop in that area and provide opportunities for those residents that are looking at transitioning out of the public housing and possibly into the affordable housing. One of the things that we've said as we've looked at this process is that we wanted to get to a point where we no longer have this divide between the residents of Whitcomb and the residents of Eastview. It's all part of Eastview. We want the residents that live in Whitcomb to see themselves as a part of the greater neighborhood, because when the public housing disappears, it will all be one. We also want to make sure that the residents who live outside of Whitcomb right now understand that you are a part of the greater neighborhood, and they see you in that respect. So when we talk about those boundaries and how we will bring individuals together, it will be through bringing groups together, much in the way that we're doing tonight, but including the entire neighborhood. Now, as we started the process, the thinking was, let's focus first on addressing the concerns of the residents that live in Whitcomb Court, simply because we know that there's some pressing issues, there's some major concerns there as it relates to relocation. We wanted to make sure that you understood that we heard your concerns and that we were ready to address those questions, because I understand and recognize that as we move forward, the better educated you are about the process, the less fear there will be about what's going to happen in the future.
Other questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
I think part of the process of getting paid for residents is, when you start talking about a neighborhood that has existed for a long time, Ms. Giles, how long have you been with close to 50 years. One of the things that I would say, since I've served on city council, when we have National Night Out, and that has grown tremendously, it's not what it used to be, but one of the things that I appreciate most about some of our richer redevelopment housing communities is that the spirit of community is the greatest and most thriving and most connected, where generation after generation, they know each other, they know their kids. We grew up in the days when we could go next door and get a cup of sugar. We don't have that in a lot of neighborhoods, but we have it in our communities. And there's a bond and there's a connectedness. And so even in the spirit of great opportunities for growth and development, there is really honored and respected in the process, because that's really what this community has to offer to lots of so-called suburban rich communities don't have. And so this community needs to be very proud of themselves because they have done that, and they have been a connected family and building quality community life experiences. But as we talk about opportunities for new experiences and new growth and new opportunities for residents that live here, the preparation for that is not something that's going to happen from attending one workshop. And it's not going to happen from filling out a form as to how to do a resume. And it's not going to prepare you for the kind of job that has been spoken of by showing up for one meeting. The timeline for your development and transformation is just as long as the timeline that has been explained as it relates to the review process. So my challenge is that I believe it is our opportunity to also, as we go through the process of an RFP for a master developer, that we go through a process of identifying the qualifications of all the residents in the community, what their needs are, and putting together a constructed plan for them so that they can begin now engage, actively doing stuff to go through this process of preparation so that as the new community comes on board, they are new families that have gone through the 18 months to 2 years of prep time, before we even start talking relocation, that they've gone through that prep time as well. And so we are not left behind with beautiful homes, but people that have not been invested at the same level. And in order to do that, I would suggest, and I don't know how to do this right, this is not my business, okay? It was just a suggestion that doesn't make any sense, and somebody will tell me I'm going to work something out that does. But I would suggest that we have a clinic where people come in and we do a portfolio of who they are and where they are and what they need and where they want to go. And we create a strategy plan as you do through your pipeline. And we begin that process now of preparation to get involved. Not everybody's going to run to the table and do that, we know that, but a significant number will. And the spirit that exists in this community, for those that will, I know you always reach back and get one more. And they will reach back and get one more. And so by the time we get through this process, the majority of the people in this community will have been reformed to be the same picture that you see from the blighted, unkept homes to a people that have grown greater than the new community that's being developed. And so I would like to suggest that we consider a process early, like now. Like you said, you can get involved now. So let's now begin that process of really doing it, not just waiting for someone to pick up the phone and call you. But let's have a clinic and invite you to come in and sit down. We can make appointments so that you can manage it or whatever. Make appointments, let's get your plan together, let's figure out who you are, let's figure out what your needs are, what your plan is, how can we build your life like we're going to build a house and other things. And over the next 18 months, we will truly have done the people piece, which is where you started, Mr. Chapman, what the mission is really all about. So let's put the people in the process and let's see if we can get that done. And any way that I can be helpful in the process, I'm open to do that, I want to do that. And I want to work with the city staff and the housing authority with the resources that are available. But let's be proactive in inviting them to the table.
I think that's an excellent point. Council Vice President, amplifying the importance of the human capital piece. And let me just add a clarifying note about the process that we collectively, city, RRHA, and whoever our developer partner or partners end up being, we will be required to craft what's called a family self-sufficiency plan, which would include a robust workforce development component as part of any effort to get competitive HUD funding to support the redevelopment effort. So that will be required. However, it is important, and I want to second this, it is important that we begin that process now and not to overstate the impact and the success of our workforce development program known as the Workforce Pipeline, but it does provide a model upon which to build. And perhaps in the upcoming biennial budget process, perhaps we can work with members of City Council to determine how we can get some additional dollars so that we can begin to take that program to scale. Because right now it's a very effective program, but it's very, very small and underfunded. So this will be an ongoing discussion. Point well taken.
Ms. Goolsbee, would you like to close us out this evening? All right. Well, we certainly thank you for your attendance and your participation this evening. Just a little secret, I'm a former elementary school teacher, so you've got a little homework tonight. And the first is to make sure that you take your notes home with you. Please refer to them. We gave you a couple of phone numbers where you can begin to get involved in some programs and services that are available to you today. I'll quickly repeat them, 780-4835 and 646-6464. So please use those numbers. And again, we look forward to meeting with you, and I think our schedule says we're due to come back and engage you again sometime in the winter of 2013. So thank you so much for coming out this evening.